Welcome to another episode of Data Journeys. I'm Bruno Ziza, and today we're going to talk to Scott. He's the VP of Data Analytics at Wunderkind, and he has a lot to teach us about their deployment. He was at the company where they had 8 employees, and now they have over 400, an amazing data journey with data and analytics. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Let's start with the basics. What is Wunderkind?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bruno. So Wunderkind is a digital marketing SaaS company. We're a leading performance marketing channel that delivers one-to-one messages at scale. We realize that our clients have a lot of unique end users, and they deserve to be treated like people and based on their user behavior and who they are and their interests and their disinterests. And so each month we're sending over 5 billion one-to-one messages to users on our clients' behalf. And our clients are some of the largest digital brands that exist, both e-commerce and publisher.
So this is really about on-site experience, creating more values for visitors, and of course, more values for people providing services, products to those visitors. And data understanding intent is a big part of that. And so tell us a little bit about the use cases where you are using data analytics today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about understanding end users, understanding what they're interested in, understanding what they're not interested in, appreciating that they are unique and they have unique interests. An example on site might be, we see you've been to the site before, whether on that device or another device, and we might make a recommendation based on previous purchases. We might also use your intent and realize you've been looking at this pair of socks for a while. Maybe we should ask if you're interested in choosing a size or choosing a color or adding to cart. And then we'll extend that offsite to both email and text and try to give our end user something of value in a positive experience. And so that might be, hey, here's a list of all the things you looked at, or here's a list of all the things that you've looked at that have since dropped in price or are back in stock or even low in stock. And so at the end of the day, we're using data to understand who are these people, what are their behaviors, what are they interested in? Do they like receiving emails? Do they not like receiving emails? And trying to tailor to them, as if I'm working in a local shop and you came to visit and you come to visit all the time. I know what you're interested in and I know what you're not interested in. And you appreciate doing business with me because we know each other.
Yeah, so you do this at a large volume, 5 billion one-to-one messages, a few 100 million people you interact with. You do this in real time. So you're a heavy user of Google technology, BigQuery, PubSub, Bigtable, Dataflow, of course. And so you've got a few things going on. One, you're empowering your own products with data analytics, but what are some of the other areas where you're using data analytics? Client reporting, internal enablement, or empowerment? Tell me more about kind of the other areas where you're using analytics today.
Absolutely. So I touched on the fact that there's a lot of interaction between us and end users. So data plays a critical component there, or is a critical component there. The next would be client reporting. So we are running a lot of different strategies and different campaigns for our clients. There's a lot of things that are both rules-based and machine learning-based or AI-based. And so we help our clients understand what's really adding value, what's really moving the needle, what are the strategies that are most effective, helping them understand things like incrementality, giving them insights and opportunities for their own sites. That might be things like, we see a lot of friction in this area of the funnel, and you could potentially improve that by doing X, Y, and Z. And maybe it's something with their checkout flow. So that's a fun one. And one of the challenges is our clients are very different. Even though there's a lot of e-commerce and publishers, even among e-commerce, they vary so dramatically in terms of KPIs that they care about, in terms of data that they're interested in. And so we do get a lot of custom asks as our clients think of us as thought leaders and know that we have such a rich understanding of on-site user behavior and off-site user behavior. And so that is a real challenge, but something that we're able to keep up with really nicely thanks to BigQuery and thanks to having Looker set up in a very optimal way. The next area in which we're using data, I would call it internal empowerment. Everything we do is driven by data for the most part. We do not run campaigns or run strategies for the sake of running campaigns and strategies. We're running it because we have reason to believe that it's adding value. And then we will confirm it's adding value. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's offering our end users something and it's making our clients happy. And so we innovate at a pretty rapid rate. Bruno, you and I talked about a few of our products, and really that was just a few because there are so many. And our analytics team tries to keep up with our innovation and make sure that every single new feature, every single new product, we understand how it's really working and where it's working and where it's not working, and if it's AI based. We want to know what are the machines doing? What are they thinking? And again, we're able to do this. Thank you to BigQuery, thank you to Looker, and thanks to some really intelligent design and great people.
So I want to talk a little bit about business intelligence, and then we'll talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. How are you using BigQuery and Looker together internally and externally?
Yeah, absolutely. So internally, everyone's using Looker. Almost, I would say that the entire company. Thankfully, they don't have to really think about where the data is coming from, even if it is BigQuery. And the way that we've been really successful here is understanding who our end users are, which are our employees, but there's a number of them, and what is the data that they're really interested in. So when it comes to Looker, there's a lot of ways to share data. And what we haven't done a ton of is the ability to really explore data from scratch and build something out. What we rely really heavily on is purpose-specific dashboards. And the reason this has been effective is because we can make sure it's really answering our end users' questions. It's really getting at the heart of what they care about. So for instance, we send a lot of emails on our clients' behalf. And so our clients have been asking, how many people receive more than one email in a given amount of time, or more than 2 emails, or more than 3 emails. And that's something that's pretty easy to do in BigQuery. And so we figured, okay, then it should be pretty easy to do in Looker. And we gave it some thought, and we figured out what is the best way to display it, what is the best narrative to add to it, what is the best way to show it back to our clients. And so that's what we ended up with, is a pretty beautiful dashboard, but forget about the fact that it's beautiful, it's actionable and it's meaningful, and it gets to the heart of the problem.
That's excellent. And then of course you are using BigQuery machine learning. And so tell me a little bit about kind of what you're trying to do there around anomaly detection. Why does this matter for your employees and also your clients?
So we're using machine learning in a few different areas, both to empower our product, and more recently we're using it internally with analytics for anomaly detection and catching odd-looking data. So for instance, we may notice that one of our clients' websites has a dramatic spike in visits, or a complete drop-off in visits, and that's something that we want to look at and make sure, is this legitimate? In the last year or so, we've had a lot of newsworthy events have happened, and so our REMA alerts have went off. And immediately when I see that, I go, oh no, there's something in the news. And sure enough, there's something big in the news. And REMA has been pretty amazing for anomaly detection. Again, it's working in conjunction with Looker. We've gotten some really nice charting to make our alerts very actionable. I think the challenge now for us with machine learning is that BigQuery has so much of it with BQML that we want to play with it all and we want to explore it all. And we just don't quite have the time.
Well, that's a good problem to have. So we've talked about the sophistication of your use cases. We've talked about how really you're a data-driven organization. Data is the differentiator. The ability to interpret the data, to understand intent is a great value proposition for your company. And given you've had 8 years of experience in building this amazing platform, let's get into the do's and the don'ts now. Let's get into what you would tell yourself at the beginning of this journey you absolutely must do. So let's start with some positive do's.
So for the do's, when it comes to modeling data, the analytics team should be involved, especially if it's analytical data. And you want to give it thought. You absolutely want to give it thought and think through most of the use cases, but you're never going to nail it. It's never going to be perfect. So at some point you got to say, all right, it's time, let's do it. That's not the do. The do is plan to continuously improve. Plan to refine your data model, live with it for a few months, however long it takes, learn from it, but then improve it. And the way that I think about it is, if I had to teach a new employee how to use the data set, how many weird nuances and caveats would I have to explain? And if there's too many, if it's not intuitive enough, then probably there's some work to do. So that's do number 1. Do number 2 is an obvious one: garbage in and garbage out. So set aside time for data integrity and validation. I believe greatly in redundancy. As an analytics leader, I want to have my own alerts and my own tests set up, regardless of what the broader engineering team has, because I know this, when I need the data most, I don't want to be wondering how accurate it is. I want to have confidence that the data is as accurate as it can be, and it is what I believe it is. And then finally, do number 3 is data enablement. And data enablement comes from really understanding your stakeholders and their needs. It comes from an actual conversation if not many conversations. And it doesn't happen just by giving out raw access or access to large quantities of data. It is very easy to misinterpret raw data, as I'm sure any data analyst can vouch for. And so I wouldn't want to put my stakeholders in a situation where they can run with inaccurate data. So talk to your stakeholders, understand their needs, and focus on intelligent design.
And so that gets us to your favorite expression, which is there are many ways to eat a kiwi. And I think your don't give everyone access to SQL.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, how do you parse through the various personas and the type of access you're giving to your users to the data?
So I think internally I've built a reputation as being a little bit of a stickler with regards to giving people SQL access. I love SQL. I want other people to love SQL too. However, it's not the right solution for everything. So there's a lot of very basic or very repetitive types of asks that we get, and we should be answering those consistently the same way every single time. We should, back to many ways to eat a kiwi. In this case, we should be eating the kiwi the same way every time, because a lack of consistency will get us in trouble. So if every client that we have had a different understanding of how many sends they had or how much incremental revenue we drove, or every time they asked, they got a slightly different answer, things would be bad. So the reason that I don't like giving out SQL access to everyone is not because I don't want them running SQL, but because I want them to approach problems similarly in a way that's easy for us to manage as an organization and works with our narrative.
And so do you then give access to particular personas, or you're picking maybe a data scientist has access to this type of data in this interface, and the business analyst has access to that type of data with that interface? How do you even start, deciding who's got access to what?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very much team oriented. So for instance, the analytics team is, outside of, let's say, engineering, the analytics team is really the only team that has access to SQL and the ability to run ad hoc SQL queries to answer questions. And then around us, we have a few teams that I would say are power users of Looker, and they have more open access to Looker, the ability to explore in Looker terminology, to explore and build out their own reports. And that's based on a lot of trust and a lot of education, and also because they do now, not so physically, but they do sit very closely to us and work very closely. On the outskirts, we have our accounts team and our sales team, and that's where we just can't afford to run with incorrect data or data that does not get at the heart of the problem. And so for our account managers and our sales team, they have access to dashboards where the dashboard is purpose specific and answers one type of problem, but it can do so in a very flexible way.
Thank you so much, Scott, for the insights. We learned that the art and science of modeling, it changes, and that you have to build at the beginning to make sure you have the ability to modify these models. We also learned how to provide access if you're a data scientist, the data analyst, and type of interface that you need. I feel like I've learned a lot from you in this short segment, and I hope people can reach out to you to learn more from you directly. If you're interested in more stories just like this one, click on the link down below. Until next time, I'm Bruno Aziza.